What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Extra Point College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Karnes, joined as always by my co-host, Daniel Hammack. Daniel, we are diving into the Big 10, the Big 18, as they're known on this podcast. You know, you can't rebrand at this point. They're going to keep adding teams. But, man, this is the biggest Power 4 conference by two teams, or by one team. I think ACC has 7 teams. For the Power 2 conferences, we've kind of eaten our vegetables, right? We're getting to the entrees here with the Big 10 and the SEC. Going to be really excited to dive into these teams, have our over-under win totals, and here before we know it, we'll be making some conference championship picks, some college football playoff picks, and national championship pick, all the fun stuff to wrap up talking season before we start playing some actual football. Daniel, how you doing?
Great. I mean, you said that they can't rebrand now because teams are getting there's too many teams. I mean, I am old enough to remember Pac-10 before the Pac-12.
That's true.
And then, the Big 8 before the Big 12. So, just keep it all. They move numbers around occasionally. Big 10 has kind of been like, no, we are superior, so we're staying at 10, even though they've had more than 10 for, a quarter century. But, it is what it is.
It is what it is. The Big 10, hey, reigning back-to-back national champs. Are we dealing with the best conference in college football?
I definitely think that there's an argument. I think that, there's certainly several teams that can compete with the SEC. Obviously, they've had back-to-back national champions, like you mentioned. This is a fun debate. Big 10 is very marketable. They make a lot of money. They have their, certain things they stand on as far as the, academics and all this, be research institution and all that stuff, while also being great in sports. All that's well and good. I think they kind of sold their soul a little bit when they brought in these last, handful of teams with USC, UCLA, and Oregon, Washington. But I don't know. I think it's a fine argument to have. I won't stand for, me and you are, born and raised in the SEC. So I try my best to be as objective as I can. And, there is, 2 decades of proof that it's tough for me not to lean on when evaluating the SEC. I'll say this, there are certainly several great teams in the Big 10, and they are in the top 2 conferences, no question. And they are definitely one of the big power brokers. But if you're asking me about strength of schedule or something like that, I know they play 9 conference games, but going on the road to Rutgers versus going on the road to Mississippi State, who you could compare as far as skill and quality wise, right? Jacob, you'd probably say that they're both the runts of the litter. They're both runts of the litter. All right. You're not going to go into Mississippi State the same way you're going to go into Rutgers. You're just not. Those fans, the difference is the fans and the home atmospheres of the SEC schools is still superior. And I get it. When it gets, the weather starts changing, it gets cold in the Big 10, most of the places up there. So, if you don't have great football, you're not going to sit and deal with it. The South can kind of overcome that a little bit, but I think it's also just bred within the, the community. It's not to be like a advertisement for the SEC. You're welcome, Greg Sankey, but it does just mean more individually to fans. It's not just about the top teams. Yeah. But dude, I'm excited about that kind of debate. These are 2 great conferences.
Yeah, 2 great conferences. I take emotion out of it. I just got a cold hard computers. The SEC has been, according to the metrics, as far as average power rating goes, the best conference in college football for almost 2 decades now straight. And it's not been close on average, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, we talk about this all the time. Like, a conference is typically judged off of how good your best teams are. And obviously it's going to sway your average too. And so winning national championships does make this a debate, especially in the 12-team era where you got to go face a bunch of teams. And, Ohio State, a 3rd best team in their conference, according to conference standings last year, and went and knocked off the SEC number 2 in the playoff, as well as the Big 10 number 1, obviously, in a rematch. But fun debate. You know what? Let's start with the conference champs. I was going to start with Ohio State. Let's start with the conference champs. A win total of 10.5, the Oregon Ducks. This is year 4 for Dan Lanning. Goodness gracious. Year 4 of Dan Lanning. He's at a destination job. He, I say in this era, has like woken a sleeping giant. Oregon's obviously been on the national stage, played for national championships. They've not gotten over that hump yet. Phil Knight wants to see it before he dies. Their win total is at 10.5. Daniel, how do you feel about the Ducks in 2025? The reigning Big Ten champs in their first year in the conference. Really impressive.
Yeah, I think this is great. Oregon last year had maybe the quietest Heisman contender in Dylan Gabriel. And, obviously he's very well traveled. So there was a lot of probably consternation over, oh yeah, he's, how good is this team going to be? You kind of saw the identity of Dan Lanning though on the team itself, the defense, the mentality, the toughness, lines of scrimmage. But as far as, because you lose Kenny Dillingham as OC, this is last year, lose Kenny Dillingham, you lose Bo Nix, and it was kind of a restart, and they're in the some would argue is the toughest conference, or at least second toughest conference, and then they essentially upped their game, and then they go and win the conference outright, make it to a playoff semifinal. All that stuff is very, very, very impressive. A move last year that I was curious about was Dante Moore transferring as Dylan Gabriel transferred. So he had that very good freshman year at UCLA, and it was kind of like, is he going to start? Is he going to battle Dylan Gabriel out? Or is this more of like a long-term move? And it seemed like at the time it may have been Oregon playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. And now it's going to pay dividends because not only is he, the projected starter this year, but he's had a year in the system. He already knows his guys. He knows the calls. He knows, there's no, he's already ingrained in that system. So I think that's going to be kind of evident this year in the era of transfer quarterbacks where everybody's changing year to year to be the starter. Changing a year ahead of time, I think that's going to be a big deal for him. Obviously, DeCorian Moore, Evan Stewart out wide, that's going to be big. They're replacing a lot on the offensive line, so that's something to be kind of a little bit concerned about. Mateo Uy, defensive end, edge rusher, I'm very high on him. Obviously, he's coming into his junior year. This is his pop year before he goes pro. So you do have some very, very strong talent on that side of the ball. You got to look at the schedule. I like how they start out with, Montana State. They play Oklahoma State. I'm not really concerned about them. We talked about them in the Big 12. They're on the low end. They're kind of cycling down at Northwestern. So their first 3 games, and then they have the Civil War game and then right there. It does feel weird not to have that towards the end of the year, but it is what it is. Those first 4 games, and then they have their big challenge at Penn State. We're going to talk about Penn State in just a little bit. That's going to be a tough game. Yeah, it's a whiteout
at night. Miracle. Right?
Yeah. So
didn't they get it at night? Maybe they didn't.
I think I heard that. Yeah. See. And then they play a playoff team from last year. They come home and play Indiana. So you got to keep that in mind. But at Rutgers, they get Wisconsin test. At home, at Iowa. It's tough to look at this schedule. It's tough to look at any schedule and just mark W's down for anybody, especially when you've lost this much, as far as returning production, they're going to be lower in the country, that kind of thing. It's Oregon. It's Dan Lanning. They recruit at a high clip. I'm really high on all these guys, especially Dante Moore. I really am expecting a big year from him. So yeah, for me, I'm going to say that they go over. I think 11-1 is more likely than 10-2. Looking at the schedule, I think they could lose to Penn State, but they don't have the 2 other teams. I think that match up well with them would be like Ohio State and Michigan, and they could beat Penn State and then they could still lose another game and still be over. So I know it's a high number, 10.5, but I'm going to go over for Oregon.
Yeah. Just off the top of your head, I'm like, where on the schedule other than Penn State is are you circling as the most losable game on the schedule?
For the sake of, at Washington, maybe at the end of the year,
because I think that's the right answer. Maybe at Iowa, but it's after a bye, just because of travel. I'm like, I need to go.
I was going to have to prove that offense once and for all for me to ever worry about them against the big boy.
My only reason for saying that is it was interesting last year, the stats of like teams that traveled 2 time zones, their record in those games, especially against the spread. But even straight up was like kind of like, oh wow, maybe this whole, conference that goes from coast to coast isn't the best idea for these players. Just an idea. So I'm over on Oregon at 10.5. I'm with you on the over. I think this is a team that's going to go back to Indianapolis and play for a Big Ten championship. Yeah, like you said, like at the most losable game is at Penn State. There'll be a dog there by. It's a whiteout, so I think that line's being inflated a little bit. Like I think that might be close to a touchdown. It'll be a 1-score line though. And Penn State does very well in whiteout, especially at night. So that's definitely a losable game. But outside of that, man, I mean, this is a team that ran through the Big Ten last year, went 12-0. I don't see them slipping up twice given the schedule. They have one of the easier Big Ten schedules, and yes, they're 95th in returning production. But again, this is one of the 4 best schools in recruiting right now, and that being I'll say 5 best if you want to go Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas. I think that's those are your big boys in recruiting. Oregon's up there. They've taken, I mean, they have an all Big Ten transfer from Purdue that, oh goodness. Ellen Thieneman. Here we go. And they have the JUCO corner from last year that was a top-ranked JUCO corner. They brought in some good transfers on top of. They're just recruiting really well because it's Oregon, and Dan Landy's going to do that well. I see this team going over. I see them at 11-1 at the end of the year, or 12-0. So give me the over. I think that's more likely than 10-2. I'm very high in Oregon. I like your point about Dante Moore coming in last year, so he's got a year in the system. I have put that in my back pocket since last year, and more to come on Dante Moore in a future episode, I will say.
I love it.
Yeah, big on Dante Moore, over for the Ducks. 3 teams at 10.5 win total in the Big Ten. The next one being the defending national champions, the Ohio State Buckeyes, who did not play in the Big Ten championship last year, won the national championship. Will that be the norm moving forward? We will see. Definitely more of a chance for that in the expanded playoff of these elite teams getting second and third chances. Ohio State, Ryan Day, who couldn't win the big one and couldn't get over the hump. He's never going to win a national championship. Is now a national champion head coach. You and I have been high on Ryan Day for a long time, saying he's, for a while, the 3rd best coach in college football. Saban retires, 2nd best coach in college football. I think he proved it last year the way they motivated the team at the end. He still does have a Michigan problem. They're going to be favored again against Michigan this year. Their win total set at 10.5. Defending national champs. They went under this last year. Daniel, how do you feel about the Buckeyes in 2025?
Yeah, let me just say I was wrong last year because I hadn't calibrated my thoughts to the 12-team playoff. I was still in 4-team playoff mode because I was right because they wouldn't have made the 4-team playoff. But then they got hot. They had a great schedule or a great, path, I guess. And they're just the best team when they're playing their best. When they were playing their best, nobody could beat them. So,
and I'll add this real quick. Like Ryan Day talked about the fact that they approached last year very differently. I'll be curious to see how the elite teams do this, where he openly said they took games off and like losses were not as hard because they know like basically let's go win 10 games. And I'm not including Michigan in this. I think I know they're trying to beat Michigan, and I think they went about it the wrong way last year. They tried to
beat them a different way. Yeah.
Right. But like you said, when they were at their best, they were the best team in the country all year. I think that, well, I could say that about Oregon too. When they were at their best, they were the best team in the country. But when it mattered at the end, they got it to click at the right time. I'm curious if more elite teams especially will be doing that in do you rest guys? You know what I mean? Are you like...
It's like the NBA approach, like the LeBron, rest the guys, and then can you turn it on at the right time?
Right.
I think to a certain extent, it's going to be a very small minutia of teams that are allowed to do that. There's so many teams that can't even get to that stratosphere.
You're talking
about
maybe
the 1% of the 1% kind of thing.
Right.
So I don't know if it's going to be a real talking point or not. And, those teams at the top, their coaches are usually pretty tight-lipped anyways. But Ryan Day, elephant in the room, they tried to bully Michigan, and Michigan wanted them to try to do that instead of maybe just throwing it outside the Julio Jones. I mean, they have Jeremiah Smith, who that's my best comparison. And it's,
you're not wrong.
He's unbelievable. Anything you can and say cannot be used against you. He is the best in the game. Ohio State might have the best two players in all of college football when you put in Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith. And so you've got your best offensive player, best defensive player in all of football. Still, you're going to have to take somewhat of a step back, you think. You look at recent history, teams that have had this many players drafted off. Look what happened to Michigan just 1 year ago. Georgia kind of overcame it. Those couple of years that they still had pretty good seasons after 21 and 22. Obviously, after 21, they won in 22, but 23, they still went to the SEC championship, had a good year, only lost one game. You think back to Alabama always stayed pretty good. LSU dropped off. So it really depends on the type of program. I think they're going to stay put for the most part, but they lose quarterback. They've got 3 returning offensive linemen. They've got J.J. Smith, Carnell Tate out wide, still there. Brandon Ennis coming into his junior year, finally getting able to be on the field a good bit. That's just, stop me when you've heard this before, but Ohio State knows how to recruit at wide receiver, so they're going to be just fine. I'm excited to see Julian Sayin. He was originally that Alabama commit that backed out when Saban retired, and so he was only there for a couple weeks before he transferred to Ohio State last year. I think being in this system for a year is going to be big for him. He was a 5-star, top recruit. So, being able to not have to do this all as a true freshman, I think is going to be big. It's going to be easier throwing to these receivers. I'm curious about running back because they lost so much punch when you lose Quinshon Judkins, who had only come in for the 1 year, and Travion Henderson, 2 guys that got drafted in the NFL, are going to be, viable starters in the NFL this year for their respective teams. You had both of those guys in-house last year. So I'm curious if James Peoples can uphold that as the starter. CJ Donaldson also transferred in from West Virginia, and he's a very hard runner, and I kind of like his identity being kind of that ground and pound back in this offense. So I want to see kind of how that backfield share shakes out, if it's going to be a committee thing or if it's going to be one or the other. Defensively, what's going on? Losing your defensive coordinator to a rival Big Ten school for the same lateral position. I'm interested. I don't know what's going on as far as that's concerned. They lose their offense. Obviously Chip Kelly he left and he's with the Las Vegas Raiders now to be their offensive coordinator. Yep. So that's more of a normal move. Like, oh, hey, he's just going back to the league. The whole Jim Knowles thing is weird. I say all that to say they've got to take somewhat of a step back. They lost so much defense, lost their quarterback. They're breaking in some new players. They start out against Texas. Texas is going to be really highly thought of this year. They go to Washington, and then they've got Penn State on the schedule. They get them at home, and then obviously at Michigan at the end of the year. 10.5. I have to really believe in them this year. I'm about to talk about the team I think that's going to beat them this year. I think for the first time in a while, I think Penn State's going to get them. We'll get to Penn State in just a second, but yeah, I think 10-2 for Ohio State is a good year. I think they're in the playoff. It's just going to be tough. This is a tough schedule, even though there's a lot of winnable stretches to start the year with Texas and then Penn State on the schedule. Give me 10-2.
10-2. So you're under the win total for Ohio State.
Under.
You're gonna be shocked to hear this, Daniel. I'm over on Ohio State. I see this team. I try to come up with team comps. Oh, by the way, I need to go backwards for just a second. Important stat: uniforms for these teams. I do have. Sorry, move my document here. A surprising rank for Oregon in the Big Ten, 7. And here's why. They wore some weird combos last year. I think this throwback look that they've gone with, like a more classic, big blocky number, kind of a goldish yellow that they wear as like their primary home uniform now for Oregon, looks really good with its correct combo and really weird when it's not with its correct combo, which they did a few times last year. The combo they wore in the Big Ten Championship was atrocious, and I really didn't like the Rose Bowl one either. Oregon has the potential to be a 1. What they put on the field last year is a 7 in the Big Ten. Ohio State I know, and I love Oregon. Ohio State is at a 5 in the Big Ten. Same thing. Miss me with the all red. Miss me with the all gray uniform. You should be the best team. This is an elite uniform conference. We've talked about this, but you should be in a top 3 consistently. It's one of the gosh, there's so many good helmets in college football. I was going to say one of the 2 best helmets in college football.
It's definitely iconic.
Think that it's iconic. It's iconic. The whole look is iconic. They even have a great alternate like with the big stripes they usually wear in the playoff. Like that's a great alternate on the sleeve. Anyway, so a little bit disappointed in these top two teams for uniforms. Anyway, Ohio State, I'm over on the 10.5. I see this team comp. Go with me here. It's 2021 Alabama. Freshman quarterback or redshirt freshman, like first year starter. Team that like kind of all year, you're like, man, like, is it going to click? And they just go 11-1, and like they're in the conference championship. I'm not going to say if they're going to win the conference championship yet or not, but like that team goes and beats undefeated Georgia in the conference championship that year, is right back in the playoff. They win their first playoff game. They end up losing the national championship. But you kind of get to the end of the year and everyone's, feedback was like, man, Saban really got the most out of that team. This seems like one of those teams. Ohio State's, outside of last year, and they went all in on last year, is never going to be one of your teams that's very high in returning production. Last year was different, and I think you saw the result
Right.
of that, where everybody came back to give it one more shot. There was all chips on the table for 2024. It worked. They won the Natty. This is not that this year. It's a reloading year, but again, a reloading year for Ohio State is very different than 99% of schools in college football, 99% of teams. So I'm really excited for Julian Sand. I think he's a special talent, and same kind of thing of like him transferring before the season last year, similar to Dante Moore, of like getting a full season as like getting thrown the playbook and stuff. I think it's going to be huge. He's got elite arm talent. They've got the best player in college football in Jeremiah Smith. More on him in a future episode as well. I think they're going over this win total. I've got them at 11-1. My exact win I got to when I calculated is 10.5 exactly. So I will lean over with Ohio State because they've proven that. Can they beat Michigan? That's really my question for Ohio State, is like, can they beat Michigan? They absolutely can. You could argue they should have probably 2 out of the last 3 tries at least. They got to get over this hump and do it. So I have them atop the Big Ten standings playing Oregon in the Big Ten championship at year's end. So give me over for Ohio State. The other team at 10.5, Daniel, is Penn State. They're coming off of an 11-1 year, a Big Ten championship run. They played really well with Oregon. They won a home playoff game. They go and then lose to Notre Dame in the quarterfinals. No, excuse me. They went to the semifinal. They won 2 playoff games because they got Boise. Forgot about that. Yeah. What a draw. They go to the semis last year, losing to Notre Dame. I'll get to my opinion of Penn State this year. I feel like I've been very fair with Penn State. I think James Franklin's one of the most underrated coaches in college football, if not properly rated. I think people calling him overrated. We did this exercise in the offseason. When was the last time Penn State lost a game to not Ohio State or Michigan? And now I'll include Oregon kind of in this crop of teams. It's been a long time. They win every game they should, and they lose the games they should as well. Can James Franklin get over the hump this year? Schedule looks good. The win total's 10.5. Sounds like you're high in the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, I am. Jacob, we talk about teams that can kind of supersede any of the year-to-year waves of losing players, and they don't have to cycle up. The 2 teams we just talked about, Oregon and Ohio State, I think are currently at that level where they can, because of their current structure, I think the current iteration with Dan Lanning at Oregon keeps them this way, where as long as because they recruit so well, no matter who they lose, they have guys ready to go. Penn State is not quite there as far as on that level, but they are a cycle-up team, and they're an elite cycle-up team that I think, because of the guys that have stayed, they've got 4 returning offensive linemen, obviously Drew Aller at quarterback. He could have gone pro. There's a lot of talk about how he would have been, first or second quarterback taken in this draft, would have been a first-round pick. So the fact he comes back for his senior year is huge. I mean, having a guy that's taking live bullets, that knows knows all this stuff and can take that next step, I think is big. I think there's a big hunger factor here. Nick Singleton, Katron Allen back in the backfield as well, so a lot of familiarity there. Obviously, the big question is going to be who's catching the ball. Tyler Warren is gone. He was Mr. Everything for this offense last year. Is this a huge drop-off for that group? They bring in 3 transfers at receiver that are probably projected to be their starters. Do they have enough time to, catch up? That my biggest question is all about the receivers. Is that going to be a problem for, this Nittany Lion offense? Defensively, obviously they bring in Jim Knowles, and they've got good talent. just like they tend to always have. But I'm really high on some of their guys. They're very senior laden on defense. There's only a couple of juniors and one sophomore. So they're very, I think this is just the right year for them defensively. I think this is the right year for them as a whole. I don't have them going undefeated. I know it sounds like I'm talking them up that way. I think between their two tough games between Oregon and Ohio State, I think that they go 1-1. I think that they're going to beat Ohio State this year. But I don't have to necessarily pick that game right now. I think they're going to go 1-1. I'm just giving you the over. They're 11-1 this year.
Okay. I've been a Penn State fan. Here's my, with these kind of teams, that's like, you're this close. And I'll say, like, look, you and I are Georgia fans. It felt like we were Penn State for a long time of like, this is a great year. And like, you just can't get to that elite tier. I think Penn State got to the elite tier last year. You put yourself in an opportunity to, like, you got to go to the Big Ten championship because Ohio State blew it against Michigan. You come up a touchdown short against Oregon. Like, you go to the playoff. You win your home playoff game against SMU. You win your quarterfinal game against Boise State. You got a good draw. You did what you should. You won those games. You put yourself in the semifinals. And you should have beat Notre Dame when they blew it. They blew it late. Like, they had that game won, nails in the coffin. They blew it late. I think whenever you get in those situations, and I'll say this also as a Georgia fan, like, you got to win them when you get there because you're not guaranteed to get back. I mean, you go back to our group chat when Georgia lost that title in 2017, and we're going to be right back here next year. It took another 4 seasons to get back to that game and get another opportunity. This should be the cycle up year, but last year was a cycle up year for this team too. Here's my worry is returning production is very high on offense, top 10 in the country on offense, overall top 25, but that bodes well for a team like this. Defense is at 70, and this is a team that was defensive led last year. This is a top 3 defense in the country last year.
Mm-hmm.
How much better does the offense have to be? Not if, but when the defense takes a step back this year. They're going to run a similar scheme, but Knowles is going to bring in his own stuff. And as much as I've been a Penn State defender, now I'm going to say I'll believe it when I see it. The schedule is more difficult this year. Last year, you didn't have a Michigan on the schedule. You just had Ohio State as far as those like tier 1 teams in the Big Ten. Now you have Ohio State and Oregon on the schedule. I know it's a whiteout. I know it's a home. I'll believe it when I see it. Give me the under. I get to 10.3 wins on the schedule. So I am like a hint under. And I will just say, show me, please, James Franklin, win one of these games. Show me something. Like, go beat Ohio State on the road. Go beat Oregon at home. I don't care which one. Win one of those. I don't expect you to win both. I think this is still a playoff team at 10-2. But give me the under for Penn State this year. I'll believe it when I see it for them to win one of these games in the regular season. I don't think it's a knock on them. I just think, like, again, Penn State, the returning production is important, but when they go up against these teams that out-recruit them, they haven't been able to get over the hump. And Ohio State and Oregon are on the schedule. They both out-recruit Penn State. We're not picking games directly, but when I'm counting up wins as far as percentages goes and getting the total win total, I'm at 10.3, just under. I think they finished third in the conference. Give me the under for Penn State. This is fun. We already have 2 different out of the 3 team, which is great. A lot more different than the Big 12. On a tier by themselves, Michigan, we're a year removed now from the national championship for them. Their win total is at 9.5. Year 2 of Sharon Moore. You know, allegations aside, bringing in one of the best quarterback recruits in recent memory, Bryce Underwood. Looks like he might start this year. He was on the cover of the video game, so he better start, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Their win total's at 9.5. Daniel, how do you feel about the? Oh my goodness! I almost said blue something. I was thinking go blue. How do you feel about the Wolverines in 2025?
Yeah, so defensively, they've got a lot back. Wink Martindale still at defensive coordinator, and just a lot of players back on that defense. They were trying to find themselves last year, but I feel like they were, that last. The last 2 games. Beat Ohio State, beat Alabama. I know, we're all kind of looking sideways at that Ohio State game, and then obviously people can say what they want about Alabama in the bowl game. It is what it is, but someone had to show up and had to win, and they did. So keep that, kind of in context, and there's several times last year where if they had competent quarterback play, I think that you just flip the script on them. So I think that this defense, I want to start there. I think they're going to take another step forward, and it's easier to play defense, Jacob, when you know you got a guy on offense that can go score. You're not thinking you have to stop every possession. Everything doesn't have to be a 3 and out. It's, where, one death blow could ruin it for you. So I think that that's going to help them as well. Also, the schedule. They do go to Oklahoma September 6th in the second week. I like that it's not the first week. They kind of get, time to ramp up. At Nebraska, I've got circled. We'll talk about Nebraska in a little bit. It is what it is with them. But really, it's Ohio State on their schedule, and that's it. So if you're wanting to get right down to it, and should we just pencil them in to beat Ohio State because they've done it 4 years in a row?
Like, please, when we get to this week of the season, I'm begging you to not let me pick Ohio State. Like, I need to stand by my morals of like Ohio State needs to prove it at this point because I'm gonna want to pick them I have for the last 4 seasons.
They're just so beautiful. You look at them, aesthetically pleasing, and then Michigan just mucks them up. They have
4 years in a row, Daniel.
Yeah, dude. I'll say this though. So Bryce Underwood, I mean, he's got me excited about Michigan football. I want to see a second Cam Newton. That's basically what I've been promised. So I'm gonna tune in. I'm gonna watch them play New Mexico just so I can see Cam Newton play again because he was an electric college player. They also, something that people aren't talking about a whole lot is Justice Haynes transfers in from Alabama at running back, and I think that this is going to be a little bit different from last year. They just couldn't quite break through, and I think Justice Haynes is the type of running back that, especially when you pair him with a do everything kind of quarterback like Bryce Underwood, I think they're going to be in for a special season offensively. They got 3 starters back on the offensive line. It's kind of good that they've got some new guys. They're all going to get to know each other this year. Dude, 9.5 though. That's a great number. I was really wanting 8.5. I found it on Vegas Insider, respectfully. Yeah. I would bet that they win 9 games for sure. I feel good about 9 games. But looking through this schedule, the losable games at Oklahoma, at Nebraska, obviously at home or Wisconsin, they could lose that. At USC, this isn't like this team went 8-5 last year. So, they're not an elite team necessarily, but dude, they might be a playoff team. They might win 10 games. I want to believe in Michigan, and maybe Ohio State missed their opportunity to bully them last year, and they finally have a quarterback. I think it's 5 in a row. Give me Michigan over. I like them at 10-2.
I'm also over. I get to 9.6 wins. I'm excited about Bryce Underwood. I think the same crowd that's like, he's never played a snap, recruiting rankings don't matter, they don't get it right anyway. It's probably also the same crowd that's like, Arch Manning's just a name. It's the same people. And guess what? They're both going to light up college football this year. Stamp it. I think so. Obviously, he's a freshman. Sure. He's going to have his learning curve. But like, his second game's going on the road, Oklahoma. That's going to be tough. But by years in, I think we're going to see why he was the number 1 overall recruit and why Michigan paid to go get this kid and didn't let him leave the state and go to LSU.
Dude, shout out Dave Portnoy. I mean,
shout out.
Like, that's just amazing. It would be awesome to be a billionaire and to just be a college football fan and be like, you know what? I'm involved now.
Well, it wasn't even his money. It was, what's the company? It's one of like the 3 richest people in the world. It's his now wife as a Michigan grad. And they've talked to this wife who talked to her husband, was just like, hey, we can just go get the number 1 recruit and it's going to be like a drop in the pan for us. And he was like, sure, honey, if you like the Wolverines. And I'm not kidding. That's how
amazing.
It went down. Like, that's how Dave told the story. It is amazing. You hit the nail on the head of like this team. When you think about those 2021, 2022, 2023 championship teams, they were a defensive first team that just, it's like old Alabama, Georgia in this era. Like they just ran the ball well, played really efficient offense. Boa constricted you on defense, like really good defensive line through that run. This is a top 25 team in returning production. They now have the best quarterback they've had there in a long time in Bryce Underwood. They've changed the offensive scheme. Daniel, like if my question mark for Michigan is like, are they going to be like, it's like the weakest spot roster wise is offensive and defensive line. And that's the one area where I trust this coaching staff to figure it out. on the offensive and defensive lines because they've been really good at developing players. And if that's my question mark, is like, hey, the area you're best at development at is I think your weakest roster spot talent-wise, then I'm going to believe in this team. I'm at 9.6 wins. I think they're just going to run the heck out of the ball. And I mean, Chip Lindsey's their OC, right?
Yep. He just came in.
I mean, think about his style of offense. Think about those Malzahn Auburn teams. I mean, and they've got a better quarterback than Lindsey had, than he's ever had. So I'm on the over with Michigan. I think this is a 10-win team at least. And if you win 10 games in the Big Ten, you're most likely in the playoff. So,
and think about him at North Carolina as well, and the way that they ran the ball. I see that coming to Michigan and being the way Michigan wants to play. You can really is so complimentary of how they want to play defensively. I think this is a like hand in glove type fit. You mentioning Chip Lindsey. I agree.
Yeah. Jordan Marshall at running back too with Justice Haynes. I think it's going to be a great 1-2 punch there at running back. I'm very excited about this Michigan team. I think this could be like a top 5 defense in the country. And then at that point, how good does the offense have to be to win 10 games? Like top 30?
Yeah.
Like if you have 40. That elite of a defense, and that gives, like you said, it gives you time for your quarterback to develop, knowing that you don't have to go score every possession because we're just going to suffocate people. But again, on the other side, you have a quarterback who can hopefully, if you develop him right and he plays well enough, set him up for success, go score. So I think you see a much improved Michigan team. Definitely probably had a hangover last year. I mean, every coach on staff left, it seemed like, after Jim Harbaugh. That was definitely all the chips into 2023. They didn't care what happened last year after 2023, but I think you should be excited again if you're a Michigan fan this year. A team that did very well last year. We'll start with Indiana. They made the playoff last year. 11-1 regular season, didn't make it to the Big Ten championship. End of the year, SP plus, I believe they were at 11, so just outside the top 10. They're a team, though, returning production-wise. They're sitting at 38, so not as bad as, honestly, as I thought of a year like that. But their win total annual at 8.5, very much raised expectations for Indiana. Headed with the Hoosiers in 2025.
Yeah, I think this is a good number for them because, if they were to be, let's say 9.5 where Michigan is, I think that's a very easy under. I think that you can kind of look and say, because the big thing for me is their schedule. They have a somewhat favorable schedule, which makes me want to say that they could do this again. They obviously have at Penn State, they have at Oregon, but for the most part, the rest of it's manageable. I mean, at Iowa, it is what it is. Iowa's a tough out. And then they play at home against Wisconsin. Other than that, I mean, for the most part, I think they are at a minimum on par with everybody. Do I think that they're going to lose all 4 of those games? I mean, they do play my alma mater, Kennesaw State, so, you have to watch out there. But I'm really high on Fernando Mendoza, the transfer from Cal at quarterback. I think a lot of him. I think he was very highly thought of throughout all of, the transfer portal. He was one of those top guys. I think that Kirk Cignetti is a very good coach. He's really good at placing a chip on his player's shoulder. He did shoot his mouth off a little bit at the Big Ten Media Days, which makes me think that if he were to play an
all
SEC
last year too.
Yeah, if he was to play an SEC, he looks like Dan Aykroyd, which that's not disrespect. I like Dan Aykroyd, but basically indistinguishable from Dan Aykroyd. That being said, like, I've never seen them both in the same place at the same time, is what I'm saying. But Cignetti's a great coach. And if he was playing an SEC team, I mean, he's playing Kennesaw State, so he's playing someone close. But if he was playing one of those teams, I would think that they get their doors kicked in. But that's still only one game. 8.5, I mean, 8-4, I think, is the floor for this team with Cignetti as the head coach and Mendoza as the offensive, or as the quarterback. I feel really strongly about that. They're not going to compete with the elite teams. They're not going to be a playoff team this year. But I think they could go 9-3. I mean, I think they lose to Penn State and Oregon, and then I think that they lose to either Iowa or Wisconsin. I really want to be low on them. I'll be honest. I want to be low on them. I really have a strong belief in Cignetti, though, based on his makeup and how he leads his guys. And you got a coach and a quarterback, you're going to overcome some of these, middle of the road teams and some of these teams that you're maybe program wise, you're behind or you're on par with. You can overcome it with a coach and, a starting quarterback that can, be very efficient with the ball and spread them out and run this offense the way they want to run it. So reluctantly, I'm going over with Indiana. 9-3.
On the under here, I get to looking right here, sorry. 8.2 wins for Indiana. So I'm just slightly on the under here. I think the schedule is nice as far as the win total goes. Like I think it's a really good line. We've talked about like you want your losable games on the road, like Oregon and Penn State are on the road.
Right.
So like get those out of the way, and you want your coin flips at home. So like getting Illinois at home,
Right.
Michigan State, UCLA, Wisconsin all at home bodes well for the schedule.
Disrespected Illinois by not mentioning them as a losable game. Excuse me.
That's okay.
Illinois is a losable game.
Yeah, I'm under on 8.5 for Indiana. I did forget to mention uniforms here for the past few teams. Indiana, I do have as, let's see here, 13th out of 18 teams. Michigan at 2. They absolutely should be 1 if they would not wear their all blue uniform. But that one doesn't look like bad compared to Ohio State's gray one. I don't think looks good at all. So like elite, just don't wear blue pants at home, please. I don't care about on the road.
Just always maize pants, home and away.
I mean, look, that's fine. You know what I mean? Like I'm even fine with blue or white pants on the road, but I do think maize pants is your best look, period, home and away. Elite uniform, best helmet in college football. That I will say. Penn State, I have it 4. Nothing wrong with Penn State's uniform. It's elite. It's just an elite uniform conference. So elite. Indiana 13, not elite. Not terrible either, but not elite. I'm under on the Hoosiers. Illinois, also at 8.5. Brett Bielema, just, dude, back where he belongs in the Big Ten, man. Just, freezing cold in a big old jacket on the sideline, just running the dang ball and, laughing and picking fun with refs and other teams, right where he belongs. Their win total's at 8.5. How do you feel about the Illini heading into this year? So, some people calling us a dark horse team for the playoff.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely disrespected them by just not acknowledging them as a losable game on Indiana's schedule. It absolutely is. Luke Altmaier, originally recruited by Lane Kiffin to Ole Miss. He's been this is, I think, year 3 for him at Illinois, a former 4-star quarterback. He's definitely a guy that, the longer he's in the system, I think he's a strong candidate to, really pop and, maybe have a future in the league. That being said, that, they've returned the entire offensive line. They got 9 returning starters on offense. Defensively, 7 returning starters with, I always like to look at seniors. I mean, this is a very senior-laden defense. And so you've got guys that have played a lot of ball. Looking through their schedule, I mean, starts out the way you want it to. Western Illinois, at Duke, Western Michigan. Their first test is at Indiana. So that's something. But then they play USC. They've got Ohio State on the schedule. They go to Wisconsin towards the end of the year. Obviously, that's a big one specifically for Bielema with his history there. This one's 8.5 as well.
8.5 as well.
Okay. Yeah, they all can't go over. I'm going under. I think 8-4 is I think they're right there at that line. It's a perfect number for them. 8-4, 9-3, very possible for both of them. I'm going to lean under 8-4 for the Illini.
I have Illinois as the worst uniformers in the Big Ten, 18 out of 18. So I'm going under. And that's not exactly why. You have a road game out of conference against Duke as a comparable team. Road games against Indiana, Washington, Wisconsin, all tough games. You get a home game against Ohio State and USC. It's a tough schedule. I think it's going to be a good team. I think they're going to be better than Indiana. But tough schedule. I am on the under. I get a 7.75 wins on the schedule. It's going to be the under for the Illini. We go to the 7-5 tier. We'll start with Iowa. Kirk Ferentz in his 112th year as the head coach on the sideline.
This is year 27. That is crazy.
Most tenured coach in college football. Yeah, their win total is 7.5. How do you feel about the Hawkeyes in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's going to be rinse repeat until I see something different. I know they've changed offensive coordinator, and they return. It's like a menial return offensively and defensively. They obviously lose Caleb Johnson, the great running back that's in the NFL now. He's going to be starting for the Pittsburgh Steelers, basically wearing the same uniform since we're talking about uniforms. But, that's something to keep in mind. They're 7-5, you said. The Cyhawk game is going to be tough. It's at Iowa State this year, and I'm high on Iowa State. They've got Penn State and Oregon on the schedule. They go to USC. That's tough. At Wisconsin. I mean, they do get Penn State and Oregon at home, but that being said, this team is going to be, I expect the defense to be pretty good. I expect the special teams to probably be pretty good. And I expect the offense to be subpar until proven otherwise. And the offense got worse because they lost their best player. So I try to take all of that into account. I'm going to say under until proven otherwise. So give me the under. I don't think they tank out, but 7-5 to me is more likely than 8-4 this year. I'll say the linchpin is Iowa State because Iowa State I think is very good. I'm counting that as one of their losses for sure.
Yeah, 12th best uniforms in the Big Ten. Just not like it's fine. It's kind of where I'm at. Where I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's good. 6.7 wins. I'm on the under. I'm with you. I need to see it. I need to see something different from Iowa until I'm going to start picking them to win more than 7 games. So give me the under for the Hawkeyes. Nebraska also at 7.5 is the win total. The Huskers in year. Okay, this is year. Sorry, I'm trying to find it here.
This is number 3 of Matt Rule.
Okay, yeah. That's what I thought. I was like year 3 for Matt Rule. No longer a true freshman quarterback. Win total at 7.5. How do you feel about the Huskers in 2025?
Yeah, Jacob, this is a team that I think for years you with USC had that siren song of you always wanted to pick them and you're high on USC. And then you kind of did the same thing with Ohio State, but that's actually been fruitful because Ohio State's, Ohio State. Nebraska has me feeling that kind of way a little bit, and I'm trying to temper it because they are renowned underachievers. They are the most consistent underachieving team maybe in college football. They have great fans. The expectations, I think, have gotten out of control. And then now that they've been tempered, I was excited to see Matt Rule. I think that he's building the program his way. All that's great. They win 7 games last year, 6-6 regular season, and win the bowl game. I mean, absolutely atrocious game against Iowa. That was, terrible in their regular season finale. All that to be said, the end of the year, they made a change at offensive coordinator. Dana Holgorsen took over towards the end of the year. Actually, in season, this doesn't really happen much, but it was their last few games. Dana Holgorsen took over. His first game, they had a nice explosion against Wisconsin and scored 44 points. So then terrible game against Iowa, so on and so forth. But I really think the whole offseason with him as the guy at offensive coordinator with Dylan Raiola, and they are going to be counting on some transfers, but at receiver, Dane Key from Kentucky, I think can be that big play threat that they need out wide. I'm in. I think the schedule lines up good. They've got Cincinnati, which they've not been the same since, Luke Fickell left. Akron, and then Houston Christian. Those are their first 3 games. They play Michigan. I think it's a tough game. It's probably a loss. And then Michigan State, at Maryland, at Minnesota, Northwestern, USC, at UCLA. All of those are very winnable. And then they go to Penn State, and then they end the year with Iowa. Now, I know I'm crazy for thinking they're going to go over 7.5. I think they can win 9 games. I think they can win 9 games on this schedule. And so if I only have to get to 8 wins to be over, I'm taking it. And I really think that it's largely because of Dana Holgorsen having the full offseason with Dylan Raiola taking that next step, and just being able to improve as a quarterback year to 1, year 2. He got to take all those live bullets last year and be the guy, and, got so many reps, which I think is so important for growth. And he didn't have his confidence taken away by benching him or anything like that. This is something where he's the guy and he can grow from year 1 to year 2. And they gave him some more weapons in the transfer portal. So give me the over. I only have to get to 8, but I think they go 9-3.
I'm not as high as you are, but I am at 7.8 wins when I get to the schedule. So I am over. On Nebraska. They've increased by a win a year since in the jump 2 last year. I was going to say since their 3-9 year. best 3-9 team of all time statistically in 2021. So
Facts, dude.
went 4-8, 5-7. They go 7-5 last year. I think there was it 6-6 last year.
6-6 regular season.
That's right. That's right. And then won the bowl game. That's right. So I think they increased that again by a couple games. So they make a jump this year. So I'm over the 7.5 for Nebraska. USC, my old siren song. 7.5 is the win total, man. Does Lincoln Riley figure it out? A lot of changes at USC. They changed the way they practice. They've made some coaching changes. They're starting to recruit really well. By the way, Nebraska, 9th best uniforms in the Big Ten. USC, Daniel, 7.5. See, it just seems that's the new normal for USC, but man, that seems low just on its face for the USC brand. But again, they got to prove it, man. 7.5. How do you feel about the Trojans this year?
Yeah, at Illinois, Michigan, at Notre Dame, at Nebraska, at Oregon, and I didn't even mention Iowa or UCLA. I get the 5 losses pretty easily. They got to pray that Georgia Southern doesn't come in there and just ruin their day. I do like Jaden Maava at quarterback. I think that he's going to have some good things to do. He had a couple of good games last year. He also had a couple bad games when he was filling in, and so he's technically not the returning starter, but he played last year. Yeah, Lincoln Riley's got to prove it. He's not been recruiting very well in general. They did get Hussein Longstreet, so he's a 5-star. I'm curious if he's going to, push Maava at quarterback this year. Maybe you get the best of both of them because there's some competition. That being said, I'm gonna go under. I think that 7-5 is more likely than 8-4. So give me the under for the Trojans.
I'm over on this team.
Okay.
I'm over. I think the defense can be improved. They're like running recruiting ranking right now. I think like 5th best talent in the Big Ten. Of course, number 1 class right now for 2026. I think they're going to win enough to keep it together this year. I'm excited about Maava at quarterback. I think the defense takes a big step forward. This team played power rating wise, they played a lot better than their record last year. I think it's a team that can have. I mean, it's Lincoln Riley. They can have a top 10 offense in the country, and then how much of an improvement does the defense make? Can they be a top 40 defense? If that's the case, and they have a top 10 offense, of course it's a team that can go over a 7.5 win total. I know that last year, they lost some of these games that you're like, what in the world? Like Maryland, Minnesota. And so I get looking at a game like Illinois or Iowa and being like, oh, losable game. I don't see that with this team this year. I get to 7.9 wins with this team. So give me the over for USC this year. I'm firmly on the over for the Trojans. Also,
what about their uniforms?
Number 1 in the Big Ten.
I felt like that was the one.
Thank you. Number 1. Again,
what they lack for on the field, they make up for.
They look good doing it
in their uniforms. They're iconic from our childhood because me and you are both just the early 2000s because of their run and what they were doing. It was kind of like, okay, this is what good looks like. And that uniform in my head, it didn't leave anything, you didn't lose anything on it. It's iconic. It's something that is simple, it seems. And yeah, love it.
It's progressed well with modern templates. It still looks really good. The font still looks really good because they even have a modern-ish font. It's still blocky. They do the whole modern blocky font well on the uniform. They do the thing Michigan doesn't do, which is you have an elite uniform and they just wear it all the time. They don't choose to wear something else like Michigan does, which is why they're number 1. Yeah, thank you. Best uniforms in the Big Ten. You could argue best in the country. Elite uniform.
I mean,
I go back and
what's
forth.
What's better, home or road? Yeah, I was going to say.
I don't know. I literally go back and forth because I think when we did our initial uniform draft, I said I was going to go with their away uniform. And I think I ended up going home after looking at them again because I'm like, they're both so good looking. They're so good looking.
Helmet's great. I mean, it's just all goes so well together.
Yeah, elite. Simple shoulder stripe, the gold numbers. Sometimes
same pants, road or away.
That's right. And they're gold. Michigan, take notes.
You play them every year. You should see it and be like, you know what? Maybe
that's right.
Maybe we just did this.
Let's go to Washington, who also made a uniform change, by the way. A lot better. they decided to outline the numbers on both uniforms, which they hadn't done the past several years. It's a big step up, a little bit different shoulder stripe. I have them as the sixth best uniforms, sixth best in the Big Ten. Great. Look, I'm hard on Adidas. This one looks really good. A team that played for the national championship 2 years ago. Last year, look, I mean, complete turnover of the roster and coaching staff last year was definitely just not even like a reset year. I mean, just a complete reset year. They end up winning, was it 6 regular season games, 6-6? Their win total now set at 7.5. How do you feel about the Huskies this year in the Big Ten?
Yeah, I mean, we're at 7-5 win total still. I mean, I've got Oregon, obviously played them every year. Michigan, Ohio State, Illinois are my biggest losable games for this squad. They do go to Wisconsin, and then at UCLA will be interesting. They just lost so much. It's tough for me to kind of stand and say, I think that they're going to do this improvement or that improvement. The schedule has me feeling one way. The roster has me feeling another way. Yeah. Vibes are up with the improved uniforms. I will say that. Vibes are up. That does help. That does help. Starting your year off with Colorado State, UC Davis, and then the Apple Cup, week 3 is so much fun. And then the reality check when you play Ohio State. So I don't know if they're, this is one of those teams that needs returning production to, I think, kind of stack a year on top of each other. I think 6-6 is right around what they're going to do. They can go to another bowl game, but because of the schedule and because of their roster, I just don't see them eclipsing 7-8 wins on like this year. So they're going to have to kind of put some recruiting together, maybe some good transfers. So we'll see how this year goes. I'm under.
I'm also on the under. I'm with you on like the returning production kind of scares me a little bit as they're trying to rebuild here. I do like Jed Fish as a coach. I like Washington's fit in the Big Ten. Like I think they can be a top 3rd program in the Big Ten if they recruit right. Like they kind of can own the Pacific Northwest, and I like Washington a lot. I think this year you can improve on last year and still go under. So I think that's that's where I'm at with Washington. So under for me, I get to 7.25 wins. That puts me on the under with Washington. Daniel, a lot of teams in the Big Ten. Let's go rapid fire here. Minnesota, 6.5. You over or under on the Gophers?
I'm under.
I am actually on the over for Minnesota. For Minnesota, I get to, let's see here, 6.95 wins. So a little bit over for me for Minnesota. Next tier down, Michigan State is at 5.5. Where do you get from Michigan State?
5.5. I'm at the over with Michigan State. I have them at 6 wins.
Okay, I'm on the under here. I get to 5.4. By the way, Michigan State, 8th best uniforms in the Big Ten. Minnesota here I had as 14 out of 18. So some work to be done there, and I'm under on Michigan State. UCLA at 5.5. They got a new quarterback. How about the Bruins?
Yeah, they've been in the news. I've seen them around. Yeah, for them, I'm gonna go over. I think bringing not just one Iamaleava, but 2 is big. Well, we'll see. The schedule is tough. It's a Big Ten schedule. It's tougher when you're not one of the best teams because then everybody on there is tougher. But I think they get to 6 wins.
I'm on the under for UCLA. I get to 4.9 whenever I do it. So I'm pretty firmly on the under there with UCLA this year. What about Wisconsin? Wisconsin at 5.5. Doesn't that seem low for Wisconsin?
It seems weird. And, when Luke Fickell and Matt Rule came into Wisconsin and Nebraska, I was bigger on Wisconsin than I was Nebraska. And so far it's been, kind of the opposite. Fickell, I definitely believe in overall, like long term. It just hasn't worked so far. They haven't been, this formidable team. I think they're going to have pretty good defense for Wisconsin, but the schedule is tough. They've got Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, playoff team Indiana, Illinois, and then they also play at Alabama this season. So after playing them at home last year. So that was rough for them. Is 5.5 the total?
5.5.
Jeez, it's tough, but I mean, I'm right there. I'll say, yeah. I want to believe in that. I'm going to say over. I'm going to say go 6-6. 6-6.
I'm under. This schedule's just tough, man. I think this will be an improved team. They're one of 3 teams in the Big Ten that play 3 of the top 4 teams in the same season. And they get 2 of them on the road.
It's a bad draw, man. It's a bad draw.
And they get Alabama on the road. It's just like they should be an improved team, and they're probably going to go 5-7. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm on the under. I get to 5.0 wins exactly. Yeah, I'm 5-7 with Wisconsin. Maryland's win total is 4.5. How about the Terrapins?
Yeah, for Maryland, give me the under. Just gonna keep it simple.
I'm actually on the over here. I get to 5.2 for Maryland. One of the easier draws in the Big Ten schedule-wise, which is why I'm there on the over for 4.5. But uniforms-wise, they're sitting there at 16 out of 18. By the way, UCLA, third best uniforms in the Big Ten.
Okay.
Again, elite. They don't try to do anything crazy. Elite uniforms. They also have an elite throwback. Great uniform there. We've got 3 teams here at the bottom at 3.5 is the win total. We'll start with Northwestern, Daniel. Over under 3.5 for Northwestern.
There's not much margin on the under, is there? They have. Not. I do like that they brought in Preston Stone from SMU. He's to me their starting quarterback now. He was obviously injured a little bit last year, and then of course overtaken by Kelvin Jennings, and he had the magical year. We're supposed to do rapid fire. Just 3.5. I'm going to go over. 4 wins.
This is one of the other teams that plays 3 of the top 4 teams in the Big Ten. They've got a temporary stadium, playing weird home games at Wrigley Field. Under. Give me the under. I get to 3.3 wins on the under for Northwestern. Purdue, also at 3.5. Man, they were atrocious last year. Do they improve? How do you feel about the Boilermakers this year?
Yeah, give me the under on Purdue.
Under. I'm also on the under, Daniel. This 14, man, I get to 2.7 wins. I haven't finished in dead last in the conference. 11th best uniforms, though. They kind of know who they are uniform-wise. 11th best in the Big Ten. I'm also on the under. Last but not least, maybe least, we'll see what you think. Rutgers, also at 3.5 on the win total. How do you feel about the Scarlet Knights? Greg Schiano's been here a minute now. 3.5 the win total.
3.5. I mean, they do return 8 starters on offense. So that's not terrible. The schedule, 3.5. Trying to find wins. Man, are they?
This is the other team that plays 3 of the 4, for what it's worth.
And it's like they're going to win their first 3 games potentially and then lose the rest of the season. That may be the case. It all comes down to Rutgers versus Purdue. Who do you think is going to win? And it's at Purdue. I went under on Purdue. I'm going to go over on Rutgers. I think slight over, 4 wins.
I think despite the schedule, I get closer to 5 wins on this team for Rutgers. 8th in the country in returning production overall, which will bode well for the schedule. By the way, Purdue, 108th in returning production, which when you're not a very talented team and you're 108th in returning production,
yeesh, yeah,
big yikes. But I'm actually over on Rutgers. I think they can get closer to 5 wins than. I see 4 is definitely more likely than 3. I think they can get to 5 with this, even with this schedule. Because I think returning production is going to help you when you're playing a lot of those toss-up games. So win the first 3, you get Iowa at home. Again, like road game at Purdue, not really worried about. You get Maryland at home. Like, can you win a home game against Iowa and Maryland and then maybe go to Purdue? Like, can you win 2 of those 3? That kind of gets you to 5 if you're doing the math. So I'm on the over. For Rutgers, we will go through our conference champion pick for the Big Ten here in a couple weeks. Next week, we will have our SEC preview. We'll go through all the teams for the SEC before we get to our national picks. Be sure to follow the pod on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at The Extra Point. You can follow Daniel on Twitter at Deep South Daniel. You can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Karnes with a K. That'll do it for this edition of The Extra Point. He is Daniel. I am Jacob. See ya.